A very impromptu live. I thought I would jump on right now just to share a little bit of insight about a topic that is driving everyone crazy. And that topic is the new TR to PR pathway. So lots of people have been speculating for a long time as to what's going to happen, what it will look like, when it's going to be announced, all those things. And I want to talk about all of that today for you. So let's jump over really quick and let's just start right off the bat with number one, which is what is Motion 44? And there's been a lot of people that have discussed and talked about this, but I don't see anyone actually showing you guys where this information is found. The cool thing about our dear government is that they try to have a very open, transparent flow of information as to what's happening in government. And so if you look here, you can see this is M44, which is the motion, the private members bill that was put forward by Randeep Sarai, who is the Liberal MP for Surrey Centre in British Columbia. And this is where it all started, you guys. So this is M44. This is the private members bill that was put forward. And you can see here the motion of the text. The motion text is right here. So they're basically saying that, hey, we need to move forward and we want a response from the government in 120 days as to a comprehensive plan to expand the economic immigration stream to allow workers of all skill levels to meet the full range of labor needs, blah, 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 for PR. And then they touch on the people most directly affected, foreign workers, international students. Yes, that's all of you guys there, international students. And then they emphasize, of course, that labor shortages are persisting and there needs to be something done with this. And then they highlight very, very specific things that they want done by in the opinion of this text anyways, they've encouraged the government that they need to develop this. And so what they're looking for is things that the government has already been working on. But I know for a fact that Minister Sarai here guaranteed his constituents were starting to get pretty ticked. And Surrey, well, there's a hotbed of immigration happening in Surrey, British Columbia. And so he brought forward this private members bill to force and push his own government. Remember, he is a Liberal MP right here, to push his own government to just make a decision and not keep people waiting and stalled out. And so all the information that you're looking for in this bill can be found right here. When did it effectively become active and passed and agreed to was May 11th. And you can see that they gave them 120 days. So what's May 11th? Well, effectively September 11th, right? So that's the timing. That's when it was there's supposed to be an announcement made. But I want to show you something. People don't understand this. People think, well, this is a private members bill. And so therefore there's only a select group of people that are really interested in it. Well, or just maybe the Liberal government or the NDP or whoever are interested, and the Conservatives aren't because they are not the political party leading the country right now. Well, I want to show you this. Look at this. If you scroll down here, you can see a ton of information when the decision was made, and then you can see here down at the bottom even who voted. So I want to slide over here and I want to show you this. Look at the results of the vote, just to make this clear on how important everybody feels this is. If you scroll down here and you look at the actual results, what do you see here? Yays, that's yeses, I'm in favor, 324. Let's see if we can expand this a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. And how many nays do we have? 0. So out of a total of 324, everybody voted in favor. And the cool thing about our government is you can see exactly how your MP voted. So Scott Aitchison over in Muskoka, yay. Dan Albus, Conservative, yay. John Aldig Langley, Cloverdale Langley, yay, right? So you can see, you guys, that this is absolutely 100% fully supported by all members of our government. So, short answer, does our current landscape in Canada favor immigrants? Well, every single political party is in favor of it. And they are mindful of the effects not only of the pandemic, but the decisions that IRCC made in terms of allocating resources. And so now we're in this situation. And now if we go back to the main milestones we're going to cover, M44, that's what it is. And we didn't go through the details and specifically what they're trying to do. And I guess I could very quickly flip back. Okay, I'll show you very, very quickly, and I'll just highlight them. Many people have already talked about them, so it's not a big deal. But if we go here, you can see they are instructed to amend eligibility criteria, or at least this is what they are wanting the government to do, something they've already announced, but amend the economic programs to give more weight to what? In Canada work experience, okay? And to expand the eligible occupational categories. Well, what are they doing already? With the changes to tier, they are pulling up some NOC-Cs that really should have been eligible for PR. And you can see here as well that they are, let's just close this. I got a bunch of things opening up on my screen here in the background. Work experience at various skill levels. So they're really emphasizing the in Canada working people, which of course, who's been suffering the most? It's been the CECers, right? That's who's been suffering. Then they're supposed to examine evidence and data gathered by all the other programs, right? Like the temporary resident to permanent resident pathway. And I'm going to get into how this one is really going to be very similar to the TR to PR pathway. I'm going to get to that in just a second. But to look at the Atlantic Immigration Program, the rural and northern immigration, agri-food, provincial nominee process. So basically they're to look at all those other ones. Why? Because they have a lot of experience with targeted allocations, expressions of interest, very, very targeted programs that are focused on what? Often this work experience, okay? So that's why. And then you can see, yes, incorporate labor market and skill shortage, make sure that there's an alignment with policy on immigration selection and where we are short workers, labor gaps, assess ways to increase geographic distribution, encourage francophones across Canada, not just in Quebec, identify mechanisms for ensuring flexibility with the tools. Hello, this has already been announced. So this is, to a large extent, a lot of this stuff is redundant, but hey, if it forces, notwithstanding, the government to just move forward and make a decision, well, I guess that's the case. And then to specifically consider occupations in essential sectors and that are underrepresented. And what are those? So if you're in these areas, pay attention, because these are areas of specific importance to the government. And if you have work experience in these areas, it's you too, such as health services, caregivers, agriculture, manufacturing, service industry, trades and transport. All right. So that's a really, really high level, quick and dirty overview of what Motion M44, what it is. And so let's go to the next topic, which is essentially, why have we heard nothing yet? Okay, guys, seriously? Do you seriously expect anything different? How many programs have been delayed? There's been this big splash and announcement, and then nothing, silence, delay, until the very, very last minute. You can remember even the resumption of express entry draws, right? The minister had said, oh, it's going to happen in the beginning, the middle of 2022. And then it went and the summer, I think is what he said. The summer is in June, but they didn't start until July. And there's always these announcements. And so don't be surprised. Next question is, okay, well, when do they expect to release the details? Well, we know, and if I flip back here to the screen again, we know that this here is a private member's bill, okay, put forward by Liberal MP Rendy. Who is our Minister of Immigration? Well, it is a Liberal MP, right? Sean Fraser. And so it's so strange to have your own party bringing forward a private member's bill to basically force you to get your act together and do your job. And I found it very, very curious that this was happening. So one of the things that you need to look at is there's 120 days following the adoption of this motion to provide a comprehensive plan. So when you have a private member's bill like this, it's not like a contract. And I think CIC News alluded to that in one of their articles. They have flexibility. And I guess some rogue minister could say, well, screw you, Randeep, I'm not going to do this. But of course they wouldn't. And Minister Fraser, as CIC News alluded to, and I think an interview that they'd done with him, that he was in support of it. And of course he was. I met with him personally with my other table officers with the CBA earlier that year, before May. It was like January or February, I can't remember. And the minister clearly said that he was working on something for in that case, international students that were on postgrad work permit holders, but all postgrad work permit holders who were suffering because there were no CEC draws. So back to the whole discussion here. So when can we expect it? Well, if we look at the timing of everything here and we look at the details and we scroll down here, you can see, so May 11th was the decision. So although we're not, we can probably count calendar days, we basically go June, July, August, September. So September 11th, theoretically around that range, might have been a time period when it would work. But in reality, you have to release the information when the House is actually sitting. So we can actually go right here and look and see when Parliament is going to resume. So if basically what we'll do here is let's see if I don't know if I have this. No, I don't have it here. But basically the 15th is when the Parliament was resuming their sitting in the House. And I don't have a link. I was going to show you actually the table, but whatever, it doesn't matter. So there's a calendar for the government for when they are going to, actually, Joe, I'm going to pull it up. Just give me a second here. I am going to pull it up and show you the actual schedule for the sitting calendar. Yes, there it is. Okay, so let's show you right here, you guys. This is fun. Who shows you? Who takes so much time to show you? Everybody puts their own spin. This is the House of Commons sitting calendar. So if Minister Fraser is going to release something or tell people something, what is the absolute earliest time that he could potentially do it? Well, if we go down here to September, you can see they've actually are meeting, well, first yesterday and today, but the regular kind of open process that allows for the earliest opportunity for Minister Fraser to do it is really the 20th. Okay. And so September 20th is likely when, he's going to table or release the information he's supposed to in accordance with what was agreed to, or at least what was requested by Minister Sarai here, or I should say MP Sarai, and those that signed off on it, which were all, by the way, I think as far as I can tell, all Liberal MPs. So if we go back to our topics here, when do they expect to release it? Well, word on the street, and we've had some corroboration from other political parties, is September the 20th. So let's see. So that's great. Now that we know that, what will the new TR to PR look like? Well, interestingly enough, I'm going to pull up here one other thing on my screen here, and I'm going to share it with you. Let me just pull this up here and right here. Okay. So ultimately, one thing we know is that there are only so many ways in which they can process a permanent resident application. There are certain documents that they need every single time. There's information that they need every single time, regardless of the program that they're releasing. And so there isn't going to be a lot of tremendous surprises, but you need to be prepared. You need to be ready. So what will the new TR to PR look like? Well, arguably, it's going to look very, very similar to the original TR to PR pathway that was released last May. So if one of the problems is that you can't go in and look at all that information because it is because it's closed. The program was closed at the end of in November of last year. But you can rest assured that the program is going to be very, very similar to that one. And so one of the things that I had created in the course of all of this craziness was my TR to PR pathway course. I think I had almost 500 people that went through that course, and many of them are permanent residents, if not all of them, who went through that process and joined the course, joined our private group, joined me in my lives that I did for over a period of 2 weeks. So we know that it's going to be very, very similar to this program. And yes, I will absolutely have another a TR to PR course that will be available for all of you who missed out on the one last year. But here's the thing. Minister Fraser has to provide a comprehensive plan, but he still doesn't have to have everything ready to be released and launched on the government website. So those of you who are waiting and expecting all of these details to come next week, it's possible, but it's very, very unlikely that we are going to see specific details on how the program is going to run next week on September the 20th, if indeed, according to rumors, this is when it's going to be released. So finally, the final piece of this little video is what should be your next steps? Well, it's pretty simple. Those who were caught in, well, sometimes we say with the pants down, those of you who were unaware or unprepared for the programs missed out because you did not have your documents ready. And of anything that I could advise you guys to do right now, it is these things right here. You need to start gathering your documents if you don't already have them. So what are the documents? Well, some of you went through the pandemic, you went through school, your schools were very slow to issue your educational credentials, all those kinds of things. And I'm talking about the official ones, not the letters confirming completion that you use to get your postgrads, but transcripts or otherwise, diplomas, degrees. Make sure that you have copies of all of those from your schools. Anything that relies on a third party, someone else you have to go and ask them to get something for you that you don't have control over the timing, you absolutely need to deal with that right now. Work experience, okay? You need to make sure that you've got employers that are on board, because I can guarantee, just like the TR to PR pathway, that work experience in Canada will be an essential critical component and being able to prove it. So I sure hope that you guys are employed with employers that are prepared to, facilitate and support you in your efforts. Why you would work with someone that wouldn't, I don't know. Other than, you're surviving, right? You're doing what you have to do. Also on that list, we have language tests. Yes, update, make sure your language tests are all valid. PCCs for sure. If you've gone back, like many of you did once the borders open and you're able to travel, you went back to visit family. So maybe your police clearance certificates have expired. And if there's a mad rush, just like there was with the TR to PR pathway, people couldn't schedule language tests. They had huge delays getting the PCCs. So all of those things you need to take into consideration. And then I throw out their medicals because we don't know exactly what they're going to do. If you've never obtained a medical, which some of you haven't, then obviously I would be proactive if you can and get that done. Yes, it might cost a little bit of money. Yes, they might come back and say, oh, we're waiving the medicals, but maybe they won't. With the TR to PR pathway, there was a lot of confusion, and people who had a medical that was valid, no issues. They didn't have to wonder, because there's a lot of confusion with that. So I advise, if you haven't done one, get one. And if it's been a long time, well, it doesn't hurt to get an update. And then civil status. I say civil status documents because, marriage certificates, things like that, sometimes they need to be translated. There's other things that come into play if, and we don't know 100% if they're going to include the need for birth certificates or not. Same thing if you have dependent children. So all those things in terms of gathering your documents, make sure that you have those ready. And then finally, check your expiry dates. Some of you thought everything was good. You thought you had everything and it was all good, but your passport is expiring in 2 months, or your language test results are expiring in 2 months, or your police clearance certificates have already expired, or your medicals, right? So all of those things are super, super critical to pay attention to when it comes to this program. And we know that generally speaking, if you want to find out, well, what is this program really going to look like? Well, like I said, the forms right now that are mandatory requirements when you go into the PR portal, I'll show you one other little pro tip here. So all of you, whether you are going through an actual permanent resident application or not, have the ability to, and let me just flip back, give me 1 second here, have the ability to go to the permanent residence portal and just see what it's asking for permanent residents, because it's going to be very, very similar. So if I go in here and I just pull up some old random list here, doesn't matter. I'll view my applications. I'll just go to economic here. I'll view this one. Okay, so if you go here and you look, this gives you a very good idea of the forms and documents that you may require. So any economic program, this one is a provincial nominee program, but ultimately, you can choose any of the other programs as samples, but you can see here what the kinds of forms and information that they're asking. The IMM 008, anyone here that is a built-in form for sure is likely going to be part of the PR, the new TR to PR pathway. And if you scroll down a little bit further here, you can see some are downloadable, but you can see a 5406 is here. Keep scrolling down, the 5562, supplementary information about travel, Schedule A background declaration. Lots of you have heard about heard about that if you've never gone through this process, okay? And so a lot of these, the forms that are actual forms that you are going to fill in online will be a requirement, but there should also be another form or schedule, which is similar to that for economic classes like provincial nominees. They have a Schedule 4, which asks information that will be specifically targeted to whatever the requirements are that they have for the program. And so pay attention to all that kind of stuff. And trust me, as soon as we have any information, I will break it down in detail for you guys. And I hope ultimately that whatever you're doing, you're just not going to leave yourself in a position where your pants are down, where essentially you're not ready and you miss out on this opportunity. And last year, my heart just broke. It absolutely broke for people who didn't have their language tests updated or didn't have a copy of their degree or weren't currently working and didn't have an employment job, like actually employed to help them. So just want to share that insight with all of you. And I will take, I'm actually getting ready to head down to Montana with my family for the weekend, and my daughters are still in school. So I do have a few minutes to answer a few questions for you guys. So I'll devote a little bit of time now, but I just encourage you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't and pay attention so that when the moment we hear all of the specific details, that we will have the ability to immediately get your application in and submit it as quickly as possible. Why? Oh, you guys. The TR to PR pathway was a mad race to file. Yes. And those who took the course, my TR to PR pathway course, this little sucker right here, they were well prepared the moment it opened up to get their application submitted. The big difference right now between then and what this program is going to look like, is that it is highly unlikely it will be a program that is first come, first serve with caps on the numbers of applicants. It's possible. It's possible it could be. But my goodness, the whole purpose is to find pathways for workers in Canada to transition to permanent residence. And taking the artificial decision to cap it, I think it would be disastrous. And many of you missed out or were really late in filing. Well, no, any of you guys who are watching this have probably weren't eligible for the one last year, or for some reason or other, just were you basically missed out is what I'm trying to say. So now when the key thing and why it's important nonetheless to get your application submitted as quickly as possible is because it's first in, first out. So whoever gets their application submitted first is likely to get it approved quicker. And you've seen what happens when there's a big influx of applications for IRCC, then processing times are off the charts. And if we look at what happened with the TR to PR pathway, they can process those applications all the way up to the end of 2023. Well, and have you landed in 2023 if you were a TR to PR pathway. So part of the reason I created the course was to help people avoid the mistakes, because you don't want to screw it up, but also know exactly what you need to do so you're not spinning your wheels. And for Express Entry and other programs, yeah, there's lots of WhatsApp groups out there and other groups, Facebook groups, etc., where people share information and they talk about their experiences. But the big difference with these programs, especially the TR to PR pathway, is that unless you have a background in immigration, you have a good idea what they're going to do, what they've done in the past. I know legislatively, they can only ask for certain things. I know based on what we've seen in our discussions with the minister, in the little bits of information that have trickled out, including this private members bill, that there are certain targeted things that the minister is focusing on. And we know Express Entry is going to change, and it's possible that this new program maybe is embedded within Express Entry. That's possible. It could be a completely standalone. It could be included in the PR portal that I just showed you. It could be a completely new standalone portal. So all of these things are factors that you need to be aware of, and you need to prepare now. Okay. 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 So Kanjan, I'll just jump right to yours. There is no web page for this. Okay. There is no web page yet. What I'm showing you here, when I pull up the this right here, is the PR portal. So it's the permanent residence online portal that is used when you're applying. And I'm going to go back here I'm just going to sign out here and I'm going to go back in and show you why. Okay. So this portal right now, and the government is pushing everything online. This portal right now is where permanent resident applications accept express entry. This is where they are being processed. And so when you're going through this process and you start a new application, you'll see here on this list, select a program. Economic is what it will be. There's a breakdown, a list of economic programs. And what do we see on this list? All of the ones that are currently active. So economic mobility pathways, agri-food, home support, rural northern immigration, PNPs, self-employed, startup, Quebec programs, and the Atlantic immigration program. There is like the TR to PR could, the 2022 TR to PR, if that's the case, could be on this list. And if it is, then it will follow the same pattern that we have here. And this is the closest example of what it could be. And that's why I'm sharing it with you guys so that you can go through, start getting yourself familiarized with it. And trust me, as the information drips out, I will do everything that I can to share it the moment that we hear it. Okay, let's see who's here. We'll go for just a little bit and we'll answer some questions here. Okay, yes, Jay, absolutely. The moment they make a decision, I will do exactly as I did with the TR to PR pathway. I'm not a consultant or an immigration lawyer who hoards the information to myself and says, "Oh, you need to hire me as your lawyer before I share it." And why do I go through the process and create courses like this one right here? Why do I do it? Because I can help 500 people at the same time versus just one. And ironically, with the TR to PR pathway, I was not going to compromise any of my clients. So I only took one person for the TR to PR pathway, only one. And then I workshopped and helped 450 to 500 other people. And that's exactly what I'm going to do with this program. Now, with that being said, I now have 2 more lawyers in our firm, and we will all be able to assist you guys in the moment that this application goes forward, because I don't think it's going to be crazy timelines. So although I say get your application submitted as quickly as possible, when it is announced, the details, you do not want to rush so fast that you don't have time to review and make sure everything is 100% accurate and correct. And I'll tell you right now, never, ever, ever, ever just submit the application on your own without having someone review it for you. Because let's face it, we all miss things. It doesn't matter who we are. Okay, let's see who else we have here. Okay, so Amos says, how long does it take for one to apply for a permanent residence in case they come to country through a work permit? Well, it just depends. Express entry, if it got back down to its normal route, once you meet the eligibility for express entry, and if you rank high enough, 6 months is as early as it could be. But as we've seen right now, it can be as high as 2.5 years. So it just depends, Amos. Okay. I'm going to focus on questions that are kind of focused on this topic. And those of you who have different outside questions, you can always come back and ask those questions in my next live. We have traditionally gone through with the live Q&As and over the last couple of weeks, just sent them out to YouTube, but not anymore. So I'm super, super happy to get this restreamed out to Kalpesh. Hello, good to see you over there in Facebook land, and LinkedIn and Twitter and all the other channels getting these the message out. And I've now realized, because YouTube is now also not pushing things out as well, that I need to start doing shorts. So be prepared, because Mark's going to start doing a lot more YouTube shorts, Instagrams, and stories, and probably even a little TikTok. But wherever you guys are, that's where I'm going to go. Okay. Okay. So Ross says, how about a PR pathway for all Knox CRD, not just few PNP options? Ross, that is exactly what, and if I flip back here to what the instructions were, this is exactly what this private members bill from Randeep Sarai, from MP Sarai, this is exactly what they had included. Okay. So give more weight to work experience in Canada and expand the eligible occupational categories and work experience where? At various skill levels. So great question, because that is something that they're actively contemplating, Ross. So stay tuned for that. Okay. Sneha says, hey, Mark, my 2-year work experience in Canada is complete. Is it safe to change jobs or stop working? Well, yeah, like generally speaking, any in Canada application, when it comes to work experience, like the Canadian experience class, has a 3-year period or a set period of time where you can accumulate whatever the minimum required work experience is. Now, I never encourage people to stop working just because they don't want to work anymore. I would never, ever encourage you to do that. But changing jobs, yes, there's no issues with changing jobs as long as I'd always focus on leveling up. So never go from like a skill level B down to a C. And same thing with tier. You're never going to go from a tier 3 to a tier 4. You always want to give yourself the greatest chance of and likelihood of success. And when it comes to working in Canada and the PNPs and all these other programs that I was pulling up on, the list of economic categories, if I flip back over here, all of these programs, generally speaking, a lot of them are heavily driven by skilled work. And when tier is launched here in November, then you want to make sure that you are in that, that high tier 3 and up. All right. And just to let you guys know as well, if you have not gone to our website, get over there and check it out. The website here has a ton of resources in our blog section. When you click on this, you can actually search the blogs, and there's a ton of stuff. Getting your application right and make sure you submit the right forms, okay? How to get your permanent resident card after landing in Canada. When do you need to apply for a study permit? How will unauthorized work affect your postgrad? And if you, on our YouTube channel, a lot of these blog posts we've turned into video content as well. So watch those as they're released. Okay, I'll go through a couple more questions and then I have got to get ready or my wife is going to be really upset so that I can head down to Montana. But while I'm down there, I'm definitely going to be using this little critter right here, and I'm going to be launching some shorts and a bunch of other things. I've got a ton of topics I'm going to work through. They're just quick and dirty. Bang, bang, bang. This question. Similar to what I do in the live Q&As, but easier to search and easier to find. Okay, let's see here. Okay, let's see if there's anything else. Yep, so Anurag says the question, I think we've covered this in detail. Lots of rumblings, and you can see now because of what I was sharing with you guys, this is the answer, right? So they've started sitting, they're sitting today, but on the 20th is kind of when things open up, and it gives realistically the first opportunity for the minister to share what he's got to share and what he's supposed to share as per M44 and this private member bill moving forward. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Okay. Earl says, yes, I did contact the clerk for an update, waiting for a reply. Yeah, we'll see, Earl, how that plays out. Hey, we'll see. I think they usually, when they're about ready to announce something, they keep their lips pretty tight. Okay, Pavneet says, can we get our medical done before ITA and even outside Canada for CEC? It depends on the country. It really does. Some overseas panel physicians will give people a rough time, and they will require ITA, but it just depends on the country. Okay. Okay, Armin says, hey, Mark, good to see you. Do you think the processing of the new TR to PR application will be faster than the CEC? And any news on the medical exam exemption? Yeah, Armin, I don't think it will be. Personally, Express Entry is designed to be quickly processing. This is designed to save people who are looking to transition with work permits expiring. Just like the TR to PR pathway, I don't anticipate this being having some timelines for quick processing of PR. I think it's always going to be reserved for Express Entry. But remember, it's possible that the minister somehow could embed this within Express Entry generally and do targeted draws. Remember, this was a part of the transition and the changes that the Liberals were campaigning on originally, but the minister himself has indicated. And those targeted draws, we weren't sure if they were going to be instituted in July when the no program specified started. We weren't sure if there were going to be targeted draws, but we don't anticipate that to come until the spring. So the question is, will this spring be the first time that we see this elements of this new TR to PR? And will it be a standalone program? Will it be embedded? That we don't know. As far as medical exam exemption, they're all over the map, my friend. And so I'm telling people, it might cost you a little bit more money to get an updated medical, but I would just get it and have it ready. Now, yes, it could be a complete waste of money, but If it means I get my application in sooner, or it means that it's processed quicker because I don't have to get it later if they ask me to do it, I'm going to do everything I can, right? Okay. Tanuj says, do I need to redo my PCC if just visited our home country for a month? Absolutely. I always do. If it's less than, if when you're submitting your application, it has been longer than 6 months since that police clearance certificate was issued and you've returned back, every single time, Tanuj, I get a new updated PCC. Okay, Toyin says, do you think if you're out of the country temporarily, you'll be able to apply? Well, understand that, what does that mean temporarily? Like if you've gone for a little vacation, then I don't see there being any issues with you coming back if you're on, say, a postgrad and you have your valid visa and you can return. Being away when they make the announcement, I don't think it's going to be an issue because I don't anticipate it being the same race to file with only a certain quota that that existed with the TR to PR pathway. So that's my belief. Let's see, we'll get to a couple more here. Okay, Ankur says, is there any requirements of minimum Canadian experience for TR to PR? Well, the reality is there absolutely will be minimum requirements. And more often than not, I would expect that there would at least be a year of skilled work experience in Canada, at least in my mind. Some organizations, including the CBA, had said 2 years for if there was a new program that would kind of bolster people and boost their chances because they're really, really integrated, but it just depends. And that's another thing, Ankur, I'm going to reiterate to everybody. I would never, ever take a 1-year program of study if you intended to apply for permanent residence in Canada. There's just not enough time. Arian. Oh, LinkedIn. I'm so glad. Thanks for connecting in. No questions for me. Just want to say I always appreciate your videos. Have a great time in Montana. Thank you, Ariana. I appreciate that. Okay. I think we're going to wrap it up there. There's a lot of other questions. Jewel, you're very welcome. And Jello is over in the Philippines. Good to see you. And let's see what else we have here. Oh, I love this. I love this. Alexa, Mark, can't believe it's almost a year since I became PR from the TR to PR pathway. Still thankful for all your guidance, more blessings, and keep on helping dreamers. I'm going to give an applause because, boy, those first people that took the course, who registered for the course, and like I said, I will create another one for this program. It was so rough and tumble. It was so crazy, but they knew right in advance how it worked. They knew how to prepare for the program, what they needed to do right away. They knew what was required for the forms. They knew what the documents even were required before the program was even announced. And generally speaking, I had to guess a little bit in terms of where it was going to be submitted, but ultimately we were dead on, weren't we, Alexa? And the vast, vast majority of people were able to file right away, which was awesome. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Oh, Paris, great question. Should I withdraw OINP application if it comes? No, never, ever, ever, ever until the organization itself forces you to make a decision, which the OINP sometimes will in the context of a express entry. If you receive an ITA and you have an OINP kind of pending, and they can see that, then they will stop that process, and some of the other provinces will as well. But never under any circumstance do you withdraw or cancel any PR application that you have unless you're absolutely forced to until you officially become a permanent resident. Every single option that you have available to you, pursue it. Okay. Age limit, says Theta. I don't know to what extent there would be age limits. We also don't know to what extent human capital will be a critical factor. If you look at CEC, age doesn't apply. It's only because it goes through express entry and then the comprehensive ranking system is overlaid on top of it that we run into the age problems. So we just don't know. Akash, good to see you over there on Facebook. Oh, Bright. Yes, good to see you. Always happy to see you too, my friend. He says, good news from you, Mark. Okay. And I think, yeah, like I said, I think we're going to wrap this one up. And I know there's a lot more questions, but stay tuned because I will absolutely continue going live. And as this unfolds, and we'll see, maybe we'll have a watch party on the 20th, but the reality is I just don't know. And I don't want people sitting around and having the live stream open for 4 or 5 hours waiting for Minister Fraser to announce things. So yeah, so we'll see. Anurag, hopefully September the 20th, we will see. And then we'll go from there. All right. Okay. Yeah, we'll wrap it up. Okay. Thanks so much, guys. Take care. And I wish you guys all the very, very best weekend, especially as you're navigating this crazy world that we call Canadian immigration.